It's what you're doing, making me feel like I'm falling.
Hi, for today's video, we're doing another Squishy makeover. Today's makeover is going to be themed after something that is near and dear to my heart. Squishy families. 3 of my Squishies are going to give birth today to children. They're gonna be a family. So the theme of today's video is Squishy families. If you didn't know, my Squishy Makeover videos are inspired by Moriah Elizabeth. Let's get started with these makeovers. My sister threw a bachelorette party for me, and we got our nails done. I got mine in bright neon orange, obviously, because I am a bride. Up first, one of my Squishies will be giving birth to children. To a very small hedgehog. It's an infant. I mean, this is a very small baby. She loves spinning on her back and just laying there. She's a baby. This Squishy is in very good condition. It's brand new and there's basically nothing wrong with it. I did have to sand it down just to rough it up a bit and make it ready for paint. The Squishy did have a decent amount of seams and excess pieces hanging off of it, especially around the ears. So I clipped those off and that looks good and we're ready for some paint. So I took out my white matte paint and gave a nice base coat to this Squishy so that everything was white. And now we're ready for some colors. The first thing I dipped into was a tan color, and I started to paint the body of this hedgehog. This was also a pretty transparent color, so it did take a lot of coats. After that, I dipped into some pink, and I started by painting the hedgehog's, what is it called, coils? No, quills. I knew that from last time when we painted the mother. The mother hedgehog. I think we all probably know who I'm talking about, but for those of us who want to guess, I will not reveal who the mother is yet. Although I think it's probably the most obvious of the 3 I did this episode. This one is like painfully obvious. Anyway, once I got the general colors down, I then started blending it a little bit more and adding more layers until finally the hedgehog looked like this. I also added a nice little rainbow belly to resemble the mother, and then started painting the details in brown. I made the feet brown, the nose brown, etc. And now we're moving on to the eyes. As I said, I felt like this little hedgehog was definitely a newborn infant. When I think of newborn babies, I do tend to only really think of crying, excessive screaming and crying, there always seem to be upset. They wake up from a nap, they're like, ah! So that is what I decided to paint here. Our little baby hedgehog. She is just having an absolute tantrum. Maybe she's hungry, maybe she just woke up from a nap and feels alone and scared. Maybe she needs a diaper change. We don't really know, but her mother would know why she is having an absolute fit. So here is the before and the after for this adorable little baby hedgehog named Harriet. Harriet seems to be full of gas. I think a small pin would actually let the air out. Rock-a-bye baby in the treetop. Who is your mother? Please make it stop crying. Harriet is related to the Edgy Hedgie. I think we're a little shocked to find out that the Edgy Hedgie is indeed a mother now. I think she's a great mother. Look at her poking her little baby. She seems to be really comforting this tiny Harriet, who is just on its side in a fetal position. Harriet, you are so loved. Let's move on to the next child. Up next, one of my Squishies will have an adorable little puppy. The puppy does have some texture to it, and it is nice and slow rising. Who's a good little puppy? You are. This Squishy is pretty much brand new, so there's really no damage to it. The design is a little basic, but honestly, that's what we're here for. Booped your nose. That was annoying. Let's take out our materials. Up first, we're using a sandpaper. This gives it some texture and allows the paint to stick better. After that, I'm clipping off any of the squishy pieces that are sticking out. That's done, and we're ready for a base coat. I'm using some soft matte paint to give this squishy all one texture and color. I realize the squishy is basically white, but you really want everything to be the same texture and also be all white. This is a soft matte paint, but it actually was quite transparent, and it did require a ridiculous amount of layers before I finally got it to this shade of blue. I'm also painting little drops of paint on this squishy, and I think this might indicate to you who the father is. I did make this squishy a child of one of my already existing squishies, and one of the key features of this father is actually the paint splatters that are all over his fur. After I was done adding all of those little paint splatters, I moved on to the nose, and I also painted a chocolate brown handkerchief, which is similar to this puppy's father as well. The puppy's father has a different accessory, but it is a brown accessory. That's done, and we're ready to move on to the face. I started off by painting the whites of the eyes. I made them into a big circle because the father also has circle eyes, but I decided to scratch some of it off using my long nails. I don't really ever get my nails done, and I got powder nails, which I've never done before, and they feel really fake and long. This is a side note. But anyway, I wanted this dog to look like he was smiling and eating some ice cream, like his father. And now we move on to the most difficult part of painting this squishy, the eyes. Because I wanted this toddler puppy to look as much like the father as possible, I did decide to outline the eyes in black. This was somewhat difficult, but it was achievable, surprisingly. I only point this out because I want everyone to appreciate it. Unlike his father, who has rainbow eyes, I did decide to make this child only have blue eyes. For the finishing touches on this adorable little puppy, I added the highlights and my signature to the back right leg. And here we have the before and the after for Joe. I just felt like this puppy really looked like a Joe, and when you see who the father is, I think you will understand. So if you haven't guessed it already, Joe is the child of Maurice. So I thought it was funny to have Maurice, which is a really elaborate name, and then Joe. Very random, and I think it's funny. Oh, Joe, you have to stop eating that ice cream for this minute. All right, we're gonna move on to the next child. Up next, we have this little snail. It's actually a very slow rising squishy, although it is a little bit on the smaller side. I do enjoy the squish value. It's very nice. Good for petting. The eyes are kind of close together on this, and I don't really understand what is going on with this shape. It kind of looks like a worm. The back actually does have a very nice shell shape, which I appreciate, but we are going to sand everything down and give it a new design. I took out my scissors and clipped off any of the excess seams before I was ready to take out the soft matte paint and give it a nice white base coat. Once everything was all white and ready for some colors, I actually took out some lime green. I have never painted a squishy lime green, but when I saw it in Michael's, I immediately purchased this fabric paint because that's fun. For the shell, I decided to use these 3 colors and create a circular pattern with it. Just based on the fact that this is a snail, you may already know who the mother of this moody teen boy is. But in case you don't, I'm gonna give you some more clues. The mother also has a tie-dye pattern on her shell. She's quite messy, which is kind of how her son is as well. This design is different than the mother because the colors are actually a little different. The mother has some cheerful colors on her, but the son has a little bit more of a sour vibe going on. Originally, the face on this snail was actually on the body, but I decided to move the eyes to the part where I think it used to be hair up there. This is kind of giving me some Gary the Snail vibes, but I actually really like it. I went for a different eye shape than usual and tried to give it some moody eyelids to kind of make it look like he was scowling. And here we have the final result for our moody teen boy, whose name is Louis. As a toddler, Louis was always a little bit mischievous, but as he grew into a teen, he became very moody and often a little mean to his mother. Marge is just a sweetheart. She's an absolute mess, but we love her anyway. And unfortunately, she is dealing with a very moody teen boy. He just likes to play lots of video games and say, "It's not just a phase, Mom." Gosh, I love you so much, Louis. Oh my gosh, my mom is so embarrassing. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you next week for another video. Bye.